Did you know that you can see Russia from the US? It's true. And if you're in Alaska, you can see it with your own eyes. Alaska is one of the American states that actually shares a connection with Russia. There's no land connection between Alaska and the rest of the US, but there is a connection between Alaska and Russia, which means you can literally walk from one country to the other under the right conditions. Pretty cool, right? But that's not the only surprising thing about Alaska. Scientists have been making shocking discoveries there that they can't explain. What have they found and why are they so puzzled? Join us in this video to find out as we bring you the terrifying discoveries that are changing everything. Alaska is known as America's icebox, but there's a lot more going on in this state than just frigid weather. For starters, it's huge. In fact, it's the largest US state in terms of land area, with a whopping 663,300 square miles. To put that in perspective, it's larger than the combined size of the next three largest US states, Texas, California, and Montana. If Alaska were a separate country, it would rank among the top 20 largest in the world. Alaska also has an abundance of surface water resources, containing more than 40% of the country's surface water. There are 3 million lakes larger than 5 acres, 12,000 rivers, and countless creeks and ponds. And if you want to visit the capital, Juneau, you'll have to board a plane or boat since it's the only capital city in the US that isn't accessible by road. One of the major attractions of Alaska is the Aurora Borealis, also known as the Northern Lights. The Northern Lights season in Alaska begins around mid-August and lasts until mid-April, giving you a whopping 240 days to catch a glimpse of this amazing spectacle in the night skies. And if you want the best chance of seeing it, head to Fairbanks, where clear and dark skies are guaranteed 4 out of 5 nights. But Alaska's history is just as fascinating as its natural wonders. The first people arrived in Alaska around 15,000 years ago during the Ice Age, crossing a frozen land bridge known as Beringia that connected Siberia to eastern Alaska. These migrants followed herds of animals across the land bridge, splitting into two groups. One stayed in Beringia, while the other migrated down into North and South America. So as you can see, Alaska is full of surprises and wonders that are just waiting to be discovered. Whether you're a history buff, nature lover, or just looking for a unique adventure, Alaska has something for everyone. The story of Alaska is a fascinating one that begins thousands of years ago with the arrival of the first people to the region. This second group of people is regarded as the ancestors of all Native Americans in the Americas. The first permanent settlements in Alaska date back about 4,000 years, and over time, these indigenous peoples developed unique cultures and ways of life. The majority of indigenous people hunted sea mammals such as whales, while those living inland hunted caribou. Despite the harsh conditions, these people managed to thrive and establish a deep connection with the land. Fast forward to the mid-1700s, when the Russians first came into contact with indigenous people. This interaction would set the stage for a complex and often tumultuous relationship that would shape the region's history for centuries to come. In the acrimonious relationship between the US and Russia, you may wonder how Alaska ended up under the control of the former. Well, it all began in the mid-1800s, when Russia decided to focus its efforts to the east after the fur trade began to fail for ecological and commercial reasons. However, after Britain won the Crimean War in 1856, the Russian government refused to sell Alaska to the British. Instead, they began negotiations with the United States, which eventually led to the purchase of Alaska for $7.2 million in 1867. Secretary of State William Seward, who initially hesitated to make such a large purchase in the aftermath of the Civil War, eventually decided to acquire the territory under the guise of manifest destiny. Seward's purchase was derided, and American expansion into Alaska was slow. But on January 3, 1959, nearly 100 years after the territory was purchased, President Dwight D. Eisenhower signed the declaration, naming Alaska the 49th state. And scientists have confirmed the continuous occupation of Alaska with a massive recent discovery. According to a study published in the journal Nature, the skeletons of 2 ancient infants who lived and died in Alaska 11,500 years ago are helping to tell the story of a previously unknown population known as the ancient Beringians. These infants were discovered in the Upward Sun River burial pit in the Tanana River Valley and are the first genomic evidence that all Native Americans descended from the same population that crossed the continent via the Beringia land bridge between Russia and Alaska. So there you have it, the fascinating story of Alaska, from the arrival of the first people to the discovery of the ancient Beringians. It's a story that reminds us of the rich and complex history of this region and the important role it has played in shaping our world today. In the heart of central Alaska lies the Upward Sun River burial pit, where the remains of two young girls were discovered. The local indigenous community gave them symbolic names, Dawn and Twilight Child Girl, and Sunrise Child Boy. The first child died when she was just a few weeks old, while the second died prematurely at 30 weeks of development, never having had the chance to live. Further examination of their DNA revealed that the two girls were related, possibly as first cousins. Scientists were able to sequence the genome of Sunrise Child Girl, known as USR1, and discovered that she was related to Native Americans in a unique way. Her DNA led them to believe they had uncovered a previously unknown genetic population of Native Americans, which they dubbed ancient Beringians. This group represents the oldest known genetic lineage of Native Americans to date. The discovery of the ancient Beringians has given researchers the ability to develop models for determining when and where population splits occurred. They believe that around 34,000 years ago, a population began to separate from Asia, but genetic exchanges continued until 25,000 years ago, implying that they were in Alaska by then. This shift occurred 10,000 years earlier than previously thought. Around 25,000 years ago, the Beringians encountered another population of people who were more closely related to modern Europeans than to Asians. This is how the Beringians came to be. They hunted bison, elk, hare, squirrels, and birds based on what they learned at the site. The evidence also shows that they were the first to exploit salmon in the Americas. Despite living through 6,000 years of climate and vegetation change, the Beringians adapted their strategy of using organized hunting parties, processing the game they caught, and delivering it to centrally located base camps such as the Upward Sun River site. However, what ultimately became of the ancient Beringians remains a mystery. Scientists can't determine it yet, and they need samples from people in the region to ascertain to what extent ancient Beringian gene flow occurred with neighboring peoples. The story of the two young girls from the Upward Sun River burial pit has unlocked a wealth of information about the early history of Native Americans. It's a testament to the power of science and the tireless work of researchers to uncover the secrets of our past. Alaska, a state known for its frigid temperatures and snow-capped mountains, may not be the first place that comes to mind when you think of volcanoes. However, scientists know that the land of the midnight sun can be highly volcanic, and recent events have proven just that. One such example is the Four-Peaked Volcano, located in the northeast corner of Katmai National Park. This little-known volcano was thought to be dormant prior to its first historic eruption in 2006. It is made up of isolated andesitic rock outcrops that rise above the Four-Peaked Glacier, creating a stunning natural landscape. Despite its proximity to the Katmai volcanic system and Augustine volcano, Four-Peaked was not directly monitored. That is, until citizen reports of a dark plume in the area alerted the Alaska Volcano Observatory, AVO. Satellite images showed that the plume reached a height of over 6 kilometers, and it took 3 days to confirm that Four-Peaked was the source of the eruption. The remote location and bad weather conditions made it difficult to pinpoint the source of the phreatic blast, but eventually, it was revealed to be Four-Peaked. This event was a stark reminder that even after thousands of years of lying dormant, a volcano can erupt unexpectedly. Another volcano in the area is Mount Volcano, located on the west side of the Shelikof Strait at the entrance to Cook Inlet. Despite being heavily glaciated and most likely ice-covered since the last ice age began over 100,000 years ago, Mount Volcano still poses a potential threat. It is located just west of Kodiak Island, nearly 70 kilometers south of Augustine Volcano and 155 kilometers southwest of Homer, Alaska. It is also just 13 kilometers south of neighboring Mount Douglas Volcano and 27 kilometers north of neighboring Kagayak Volcano and Caldera. So while Alaska may be known for its freezing temperatures and pristine glaciers, it is important to remember that beneath the surface, a fiery world exists. The beauty and danger of these volcanic landscapes are something to behold and respect, as they remind us of the raw power of Mother Nature. The rugged landscape of Alaska is filled with wonders that are both beautiful and terrifying. One such wonder is the volcanic activity that can be found throughout the region. The glaciers that dominate the landscape have a powerful erosive effect, quickly wearing away the soft materials that make up the cones of most volcanoes. This means that any volcano that resembles a cone must be recently active. Mount Douglas, located to the north, is a perfect example of this. It is a glaciated stratovolcano that boasts an active crater lake and une-rotted lava flows on its northwest flank. This impressive volcano has been active since the last ice age began over 100,000 years ago. While there are active fumaroles, no eruptions have been recorded in recent history. The local Alaskans were initially unaware of the true nature of Four-Peaked Volcano. They simply saw a series of rock outcroppings in the Four-Peaked Glacier. But Four-Peaked is actually an andesitic stratovolcano that is surrounded by lava flows and extensive hydrothermal duration of rocks near the summit. It reaches an impressive height of 2,105 meters, and its most recent dormant period is thought to have lasted 10,000 years. The size and style of previous eruptions are not well constrained, but past andesite and dacite eruptions suggest that they can be explosive. Despite its impressive size, Four-Peaked has only had 3 brief periods of historic activity. The first was in July 1965 when steam and gas plumes were reported near the summit. The second was a pre-eruption event on September 17, 2006, and the final occurrence was a minor increase in seismicity between April and May of 2013. Volcanoes are not the only shocking things about Alaska, as the residents will readily tell you. One bizarre occurrence that left Alaskans baffled was the sudden rain of fish from the sky. Yes, you read that right, fish falling from the sky. This strange phenomenon went on for several weeks, with non-glittery fish dropping out of the sky in large numbers. The fish in question were the vampire lamprey, a blood-sucking monster fish that horror movie makers love to use in their flicks. As strange as it may sound, cold-blooded, parasitic fish were literally falling from the sky, seemingly swooping in on land-based prey. The Arctic lampreys use several rows of grotesque teeth to latch onto their victims and suck their blood. It's still a mystery why these fish were raining down from the sky in such large numbers, but for the people of Fairbanks, it was a terrifying and unforgettable experience. The creatures lurking in the frigid waters of the Arctic are not for the faint of heart. Meet the lampreys, parasitic fish armed with rows of ghastly teeth that latch onto unsuspecting prey and suck their blood dry. The Alaska Department of Fish and Game recently posted pictures of these foot-long eels on Facebook, and the images are enough to give anyone the chills. Their gaping jaws are filled with circles of razor-sharp teeth, and their multiple tongues make them look like an infant sarlacc pit. But in the unforgiving Arctic habitat, lampreys are masters of survival. They rely on latching onto larger fish, sucking their blood until they're engorged, and then detaching, sometimes killing their prey in the process. Lampreys, also known as cyclostomes round mouths, are some of the most primitive vertebrates still alive today. They don't have jaws like most fish. Instead, they have a sucker-like mouth filled with keratin teeth, the same protein that makes up your hair and fingernails. Most lampreys are anadromous, which means they spend most of their lives in the sea but return to freshwater to spawn. When a male lamprey reaches a suitable breeding area, he'll wriggle around, creating a depression on the riverbed. Lamprey romance is not exactly gentle. The male attaches himself to the back of the female's head with his teeth and wraps around her body while she deposits up to 25,000 eggs. As adults, lampreys feed on flesh and bodily fluids by latching onto small fish and rasping away. But here's the catch. Juveniles lack the necessary mouthgear, so they must spend an incredible 3 to 7 years filtering organic particles from the water while their teeth grow into the horror show that they are. And now for the real shocker, lampreys falling from the sky. Several theories have been put forth to explain this bizarre occurrence, but the most popular is that it's the handiwork of gulls. These birds scoop up lampreys from the China River with their bills and drop them while in flight. Arctic lampreys spawn in the China River and spend several years as juveniles in the mud. However, because of their body shape and feeding habits, many lifelong Alaskans have never seen one of these scary fish up close. But with birds dropping fish being a common occurrence, perhaps it's only a matter of time. Are you ready to embark on a journey of mystery and intrigue? Picture this. You're a seagull, flying high above the waters of Alaska, with a lamprey clutched tightly in your talons. These slippery, tubular creatures are usually no match for your grip, but every now and then, one manages to wriggle free and fall to the ground below. And that's where things get interesting. At a whopping 15 inches long, a dropped lamprey can be a heavy load for an unsuspecting Alaskan to bear. While the theory of lampreys raining down from the sky has yet to be confirmed, it certainly makes for a tantalizing tale. But let's set aside the lampreys for a moment and focus on a more pressing matter. Imagine waking up one morning to find your entire village covered in a thick layer of bright orange slime. It's a scene straight out of a horror movie, or perhaps a nightmare. Residents of Kivalina, a small fishing village in Alaska, experienced just such a phenomenon. The mysterious orange goo washed up on the shores of the village, covering rocks and infiltrating rain buckets. Some residents even found the substance on their rooftops. One brave soul plunged a hand into a bucket of the slimy substance, claiming not to smell anything strange, despite the fact that it appeared solid. The next day, much of the goo had washed away, leaving only clumpy, dry powder in its wake. But the damage had been done. Dead minnows were found in the lagoon the night the substance appeared. The question on everyone's minds: what was this enigmatic orange goo? Initial investigations revealed that it was not man-made, leaving residents scratching their heads and theories abounding. Was it a freak occurrence of nature, or something more sinister? While we may never know the true origin of the orange goo, one thing is certain: it's a story that will be passed down from generation to generation in Kivalina. As far as scientific mysteries go, Alaska's mysterious goo problem was certainly one of the strangest. And as soon as Comet Elenin began to disintegrate into small chunks of ice and dust, some people immediately linked it to the strange orange substance that had been found in the small Inupiaq village of Kivalina. Comet Elenin, also known as C2010X1, had been discovered by Russian astronomer Leonid Elenin and was cruising through our solar system. However, some people feared that the comet would have more impact than just the mysterious goo. There were predictions of natural disasters such as earthquakes and strange gravitational distortions, leading some media outlets to dub it the Doomsday Comet. The National Oceanic and Atmospheric Administration was called to the scene after samples of the substance were sent to labs. The initial conclusion was that it was made up of countless microscopic eggs. But upon further examination, the agency discovered it was even more unsettling. Fungal spores were present, causing rust and accounting for its luminous color. Rust fungus is a plant disease that causes yellowish orange or brown discoloration on leaves and stems, before producing spores that spread the infection. Although scientists were unable to positively identify the exact species of rust fungus, the sample they tested did not match any comparison samples or anything else anyone had seen. The mystery only deepened when residents of Kivalina became concerned about the goo's impact on wildlife and plants, which dried powdery and likely became airborne. People who went berry picking over the weekend couldn't tell if the goo was on the fruit, which was the same color as the eggs. And what's more, the caribou had now arrived in the area, but it was unclear whether they posed a significant threat as a food source. All in all, the mysterious goo problem in Alaska remained a perplexing and unsettling phenomenon. But one thing was for certain: it seemed to have a connection to Comet Elenin, and the strange happenings surrounding this celestial object continued to baffle and intrigue people around the world. Picture this: a group of Alaska officials huddled together, deep in debate about a mysterious potential risk. What could it be? A natural disaster? A disease outbreak? No, it's something far less predictable: orange goo. But while the officials may be scratching their heads about the goo, there's something else about Alaska that they should be just as concerned about: the mosquitoes. Now, we all know that mosquitoes are a nuisance. In tropical parts of the world, they can even be deadly, with hundreds of thousands of people dying each year from diseases like malaria. But did you know that Alaska is home to some of the largest mosquitoes in the world? These buzzing beasts are so prevalent in the state that they've earned the nickname of the unofficial state bird. According to Derek Sykes, a professor of entomology at the University of Alaska Fairbanks, mosquitoes in the state can be much denser in higher latitudes than in lower latitudes. This may be due in part to Alaska's abundant standing water, which provides plenty of places for mosquito larvae to live. And when the mosquitoes do emerge, they do so in massive swarms that resemble something out of an Alfred Hitchcock film. Alaskans have developed their own strategies for dealing with these pesky insects. Some tape their gloves shut and wear long sleeves even in the heat of summer, while others swear by special bug shirts that can cost upwards of $80. And if you thought mosquitoes were bad in the lower 48, just wait until you experience an Alaskan wet spring. The water provides even more places for mosquitoes to lay their eggs, which means an even bigger swarm come summer. But not all mosquitoes are created equal in Alaska. There are the large snow mosquitoes, which appear when there is still snow on the ground. While these mosquitoes are certainly large, they don't come in large swarms and are fairly slow-moving. Other mosquitoes spend the winter as larvae or eggs in or near wet areas and emerge later in the season around May or June. So while Alaska officials may be focused on the mystery of the orange goo, they should keep in mind the real threat lurking just outside their doors, the dreaded Alaskan mosquito. The Arctic may be a beautiful and serene place, but don't let its peaceful exterior fool you. There are swarms of pesky mosquitoes and strange, mysterious creatures lurking beneath the surface of the water. Due to the short growing season in the Arctic, all mosquito species emerge at roughly the same time. This means that there are times when all the female mosquitoes are flying around looking for a blood meal, making their presence much more intense, despite the fact that they are present for a shorter period overall. But the mosquitoes are not the only creatures swarming Alaska. Fishermen are also getting exasperated by the invasion of what appears to be sea pickles, and even scientists are baffled. These creatures, known as pyrosomes, are tubular colonies of hundreds or thousands of tiny individual creatures known as zooids that are enmeshed together in a gelatinous tunic with the consistency of gummy bear candy. They are not related to jellyfish and resemble bumpy, opaque pickles in the water. These large globs of rubbery critters have clogged fishing gear by the thousands, posing a particular problem for the commercial salmon catch in Oregon. Some have even washed up on the beach. It gets to the point where they are so plentiful that fishers can't even fish and simply have to pack their gear up and move elsewhere. Scientists believe the pyrosome phenomenon is linked to rising sea temperatures along the Pacific coast, which have caused other changes in marine life in recent years, including an increase in California sea lion strandings. However, what is not clear yet is whether they will stay long enough to disrupt the region's food web. According to biologists, pyrosomes are extremely efficient phytoplankton filters, which are the primary diet of tiny shrimp like krill, which are in turn a staple for some species of fish, whales, and even seabirds. And making the problem worse is that organisms such as pyrosomes reproduce rapidly so they can quickly take over an area. But not all of Alaska's sea creatures are pests. The giant red king crab, for example, is a delight for fishermen. These crabs are not your run-of-the-mill crabs. They are larger, more delicious, and more lucrative. So while the pyrosomes may be causing headaches for some, there are still plenty of wonders in Alaska's waters to enjoy. Deep in the icy waters of Alaska, there lives a creature so mighty and awe-inspiring that it could be mistaken for a sea monster. We're talking about the red king crab, a true titan of the ocean that can grow to be absolutely massive. With a shell that can cover fish, whales, and even seabirds, these crabs are the stuff of legend. But it's not just their size that makes them so fascinating. Red king crabs also have distinct tails or abdomens that are fan-shaped and tucked beneath the back of the shell. They have 5 pairs of legs, with the first pair bearing their fearsome claws or pincers. The right claw is usually the largest on adults, and it can be a formidable weapon. And let's not forget about those legs. These appendages can be up to 5 feet long, making the crabs look like they're walking on stilts. Adult females even use their specialized legs to clean their fertilized eggs, while the males use them to transfer sperm to the female during mating. Speaking of mating, male red king crabs grow larger than females, and you can tell them apart by inspecting their abdomens. Male crabs have a narrow abdominal flap, while females have a broad flap that covers most of their underside. But enough about the crabs, let's talk about the scientists who study them. They're discovering that Alaska is home to some of the weirdest creatures, including a new species of thalattosaur that lived over 200 million years ago. The discovery of this fossil, named Gunakidite jose, is a huge breakthrough that's providing paleontologists with new insights into the thalattosaur family tree. Thalattosaur were marine reptiles that lived during the mid to late Triassic period, around the same time that dinosaurs first appeared. They grew to be 3 to 4 meters long and lived in equatorial oceans all over the world until the end. Are you ready for a tale of adventure and discovery in the rugged wilderness of Southeast Alaska? Join us as we follow geologist Jim Beektorel and his colleagues on a quest for fossils during an extreme low tide. It's not every day that the site is visible, but when those rare moments occur, people flock to the beaches to explore. Jim and his team were no exception, venturing out to Cuckoo Island near the village of Keek in search of ancient treasures. As they scoured the rocky shoreline, something caught their eye, a fossil with an unmistakably pointed snout. This was no ordinary find. It was a creature adapted for life in the shallow marine environment, likely feasting on soft-bodied critters by poking its pointy schnoz into coral reef crevices. But what happened to this specialized creature when sea levels fell and food sources changed? It's a mystery that Jim and his team are working hard to unravel. As they pondered the significance of their discovery, they decided to give the creature a name that honors the local culture and history. They settled on gunacadite, a Tlingit sea monster said to bring good fortune to those who lay eyes upon it. The story of gunacadite is just one of the many fascinating mysteries that Alaska has to offer. What other secrets lie hidden in its rugged wilderness? Share your thoughts in the comments below.